back in OMERO web. So we are, let's say, done with Fiji and the external third-party tools, and we are having the results, meaning the CSVs, comma-separated value files, or OMERO tables as attachments on things like the AFIGI datasets, such as so, as I just highlighted. You saw that I have done that in front of you. We have the OMERO table. You know what OMERO table now is from yesterday. I don't have to belabor that. And you have the values here in the tables as well as shown yesterday, but this was done now in Fiji in front of you, so you trust me. You know also the other way how to create a OMERO table, and you know how to attach also the CSV from local hierarchy, from local computer. That's all. These are all kind of streams of the river of the metadata which come from analysis, and you know that all now how these metadata come to OMERO, so that we can mine the images inside OMERO based on those metadata. In order to have the best experience now for what I will be showing, and this will be the data mining tool called OMERO.parade, please go to the OMERO web in the group Lab 1 and navigate to the data of train 1. Yeah, do that for me. You will be able to do exactly the steps I'm doing in front of you. So you just did that. You are in the train 1's portfolio and navigated to the project IDR 0021. And there is a attachment, and that is a table, and there is another attachment which is CSV. And OMERO.parade is basically harvesting the CSV or the table, and looking, these tables, CSVs are done in such a way that there is one line per image. Okay, and in the columns of the table are the parameters which are coming from Fiji. And if I now go and select the project, and in the center pane above, I have the small widget which I swapped, and from thumbnails I went to Parade. I have a message, no open data sets. Because Parade works only on open data sets, I can click Open All button, and I can see that all the thumbnails from all the 10 data sets under the project IDR 0021 opened. I can do some filtering, which is quite superior from as compared to the filtering I was showing you yesterday in the OMERO web. For example, I can add filter for regions of interest number on that image. And yet another one, you will see in a second why. I can say bigger than and smaller than, and I say smaller than 20, pardon me, of course, bigger than 20 and smaller than 40. And suddenly I have only the images filtered out which have the number of regions of interest between 20 and 40 on them. Okay, like this one, which has 29 regions of interest. So this is one way using the OMERO.parade as a filtering tool. By the way, it filters through the whole project, not just through one data set, as we were showing yesterday. And then I can go and let's say switch to the table view, which is done in the top right above the center pane. And if I do so, I can start going back to the drop-down menu on the left. I can start selecting data from the table. Now we have two types of tables, as I said, on this project, and this is the OMERO table, but also a CSV, and OMERO.parade consumes both. So actually you can kind of compare the images from which are listed twice in those two tables. Maybe they were done by different analysis tools, or etc. I will select the table image as a first column. I will select the table total area, which is the area of the biggest region of interest on that image. And then I select the table bounding box, which is the area of a bounding box which encompasses the biggest region of interest on that image. And I can now color code the lines by checking on those boxes above each column, and I can sort the values inside the column by clicking on the label above the column, as is usual. in many softwares, I can now see the results per data set. You can see this is the end of the first data set, but I can also show all the project. These images have black denotation because they have no regions of interest on them. So I can reorder the display, and you can see the dark red means that the values of the total of the biggest ROI area in those images is really big because it's dark red, but the table bounding box doesn't necessarily cooperate with that because it's a different parameter, but that's already a result which is helping you with your analysis. And further, the interesting part here is the fact that you can plot a graph of the images in OMERO.parade, where you click on this small icon on the top right, the third to the right from the three icons next to the label show dataset, and a graph will appear. Every point in this graph is an image. Okay, and I can change the axes. So I have the parameters from the three columns which I added to the previous view from the OMERO table, such as I can change the x-axis to table bounding box, and the y-axis is already on table total area, which makes some sense to me. Okay, now I can do, let's say, some inspection of the data in the graph, and I can see that those 2 points on the far right have quite a large bounding box as compared to the area as compared to the other images. So if I select those 2 points by dragging a rectangle around them and then click here and open them in OMERO iViewer, those two images will open in OMERO iViewer, and I can see how do the regions of interest look like, which are contributing to those statistics, which are ultimately then coming into OMERO.parade and are being shown in those graphs. As I said, the biggest region of interest in the image is the only one which pays. Okay, in this analysis, in the tables which we are having on those images, and if I click and select this region of interest, you can see immediately the problem here. So the bounding box area would be something like this. This would be a bounding box around this this region of interest, which is quite large because it encompasses, because the region of interest has an unusual shape. I would expect that the region of interest would be almost circular, as the central object is, which it should be segmenting. There are two centrioles, 1 and 2, but in fact, this region of interest encompasses both of them, which is not desired, as well as it encompasses some kind of whiskers here, which is also not what we want. So we can safely say that this region of interest is not valid. And the way how we came to that is by seeing those two images being suspectly too much to the right in this graph. So you just see the power of OMERO.parade like that, where I used it as a quality control tool. Yeah, I can now inspect basically the quality of my segmentations, which were done automatically in Fiji. Okay, this segmentation was done exactly with the same walkthrough as I was showing to you before the break in Fiji with the analyzed particles, etc. So this is one thing. Then there was, so this is how to use OMERO.parade on project dataset and images. We have yet another workflow to show you. If you go in the same portfolio of trainer 1 to the, yes?
That's an important point. I think you need to make sure that people on trainer 1 to view that's what you're showing, Peter.
Yes.
They won't have that in their account. Whoever you are, you won't have that.
Absolutely not. Yes, you are right. So just once more reminder, do go to the trainer 1 portfolio. If you are wondering where are the data and why doesn't my OMERO.parade show such underwhelming graphs, then this is because you are not on the right data. It must show on the top left trainer 1, okay? On the top right, it will show Jane Goodall, etc. As appropriate, but on the top left, it must show trainer 1, yeah? And you must see a portfolio which looks very similar to mine here, or identical, in fact, sorry. Yeah, not similar, but identical. I have 5 projects and then some 20 odd data sets and 2 plates and 1 screen, okay? So be there, don't be in your own portfolios, yeah? So if I go back here in OMERO.parade on the I will select the plate called plate underscore 1013 previously analyzed. Okay. And sorry, my connection starts to be a little bit choppy, but it's fine. And this is a plate, so you can imagine this comes from a complex format such as Flex or Operetta, where I have something like 96 time-lapse series in a 96 well plate. And I have the automatic stage where on each well an image is shot using a robotic microscope. And then the resulting images are then arranged in the matrix as highlighted here, where we will call then the first image being inside the well 1, and there can be 1 or more images. In our case, there is just 1 image. Okay, so this is the screen plate well format. Now, a cell profiler is the tool which we didn't manage to show just now, and there was some interest in among you about that. If I now inspect the wells here, that was a question from yesterday, I can see that there are tables on each of those wells. These tables are coming from Cell Profiler. Cell Profiler analyzed the and these images and albeit only the first time point always, and then put the OMERO table onto the wells of the of that plate. Okay, so this is on well A3. Okay, which I'm inspecting the table of now. And you can see the whole OMERO table here again with the usual trick, clicking on the eye icon, and you can see the whole thing. That's why it's called for IDR 002 cell profiler, because it is coming from the cell profiler output. And in OMERO.parade, if I switch to OMERO.parade, this is the OMERO.parade view. I can still adjust the size of the thumbnails. I can now add a filter like according to table, and I can select from the table a parameter called cell count, because this is what the cell profiler did. It counted 56 parameters of very complex characteristics, which would be very hard for us to understand now. But what we can understand easily off the bat is that parameter cell count, which I'm highlighting right now, and this is basically saying how many cells did cell profiler detect in those images. By the way, the images look like this. Yeah, so there are plenty of cells on them. So this cell count parameter is quite intuitive. And I'm basically showing now, if I start doing the first action, you will see that because the bigger than sign is in this direction, it will show only the cells which have, let's say, more than 29 pardon me, it will show only the wells which have more than 29 cells in them. Okay, so if I move the slider back and forth, you can see, yeah, to the left it shows less and less, more and more wells, because many wells have at least a couple of cells in them. Yeah, and I can go also equals, and if I select here, it should now equal to 36. Okay, so only the wells which have exactly 36 cells are highlighted now. And if I go in the OMERO tables harmonica, And look here, of course, the cell count says 36 because that is where the OMERO.parade takes its wisdom from, and from this OMERO table. Good. So this is so far for the OMERO table. Now let me show a nice connection. If you allow me to go back to the table inside the where I was, let's say, if I go to table total area, let's say, and table image, that's exactly what I was doing a second ago, if you happen to remember. And then I select a couple of points here, okay, and I can go now and open these images in OMERO.figure like so. Okay, so I select them from the table in OMERO.parade because I know that these points are crucial, because I know the landscape of my data and my analysis results. I can open exactly those 3 images in OMERO.figure. Okay, so let's just do it. So OMERO.figure is a plugin for OMERO Web, which allows you quickly to create the publication quality figures, which you can then send to scientific journals, but let's not be so demanding for a start. Let's just maybe think we want to show it to our colleagues in our lab, to the boss, and so similar. Okay, so I can see that I have the mixture of 2-channel and 3-channel images. I will remove the 3-channel image like so, and then I put the 2-channel images onto a grid. So what I will do in front of you now is to create quickly an OMERO figure, then we can talk through that as we go. The idea is that the OMERO figure is basically fetching on the fly the metadata from OMERO, and it remembers which images are inside those panels. So this is not some copying of data or so, it's just basically a connection between OMERO and OMERO figure, where it's remembered who is who, inside each panel, and the metadata, which we were belaboring enough during those 2 days, are being always asked and fetched and used by OMERO figure to display them on the panels in the canvas. So
Peter, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Before, because one person indicated that they could only open in iViewer. Maybe you can show again the how did you open in Parade? In figures, please.
Okay, so
So
so I can go like this, open with OMERO figure. Can you see that here? I right click on the image and then open in OMERO figure. Yeah, so sorted. Are you sorted? Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, or you can.
Very good. So if you are completely desperate, then you can still, well, you will manage. It's also here on the top right. Yeah, that's what I was doing actually. Here, top right, OMERO figure, like so. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The result will be the same. So I snap to grid those 2 images, then make them a little bit smaller. Okay, and then do just the usual trick. Sometimes people are confused by copy pasting here because there are plenty copy and paste buttons inside OMERO figure. You can now follow what I'm doing by doing edit copy and then edit paste, but that's too slow. You can be much faster if you use the shortcut, which I will do from now on the keyboard. You can go Control-C, Control-V on Windows, yeah? So as I have those 2 images selected, I can do again copy, Control-C, Control-V, okay? So, and then I can nudge with the keys on my keyboard, with the arrows on my keyboard, and then I can say, well, that's nice, but you see the centrioles here are very small object inside that image. I want to zoom these centrioles in. So if I select this image, there is a zoom button in the preview tab. I zoom in. That's nice. The bottom part is almost nice, but the top part is different. I will need to adjust it separately. And I do it like that. So I select just the top row and adjust the top row. Now I'm happy with the display of inside the panels. And now let me adjust the rendering settings, which I can do inside the figure, as well as I can change the channel display. such as here in the first row green, in the second row red. And I showed you actually this is coming to the kind of split view. This is the same trick like in iViewer. I'm done with the channels, and the third one, of course, will be the merge. And I will go on to go and add labels. Pardon me, I will go on and add scale bar. So the scale bar in this case will be quite large. By default, it's 10 micrometers, but the images are quite small. If I attempt to go to labels and click, you can see that the scale bar is huge. So I have to adjust the units of the scale bar to nanometers. This is more reasonable in this case. And these are very small object. Well, 10 nanometers nevertheless is too small. So I have to go and say 500. Okay. And if I hit enter in my keyboard, you can see that the reasonable scale bar popped up. And if I click on label, a label saying 500 is there. The whole thing is too small, but I can make it inside the OMERO figure a little bit bigger. Scale bar is there. Where did this scale bar come from ultimately? Well, in OMERO figure fetched the size and the calibration of the image from OMERO. That's how it come to life, okay? And then I can put the labels on the top. So by selecting the top row, I want to know which channels are in each column. I will do that by deploying the add labels, and then I will select channels, and then I will say bigger font 14, and then I don't have to worry about the colors, and the channel names will pop in the top of the panels here. If I select top, in the next one I click add. You can see it's the channels are 141 NED1 and NED101, and then this is of course a merge. Of course, I had no idea what the channel names are. I just picked some random images, yeah. But OMERO figure made sure for me that I don't get lost in the images and metadata, because it remembers which images are in which panel, and it can go to OMERO and ask OMERO for the metadata, in this case, channel names, okay? And on the vertical, I would like to pop the labels from dataset names, because the dataset name, in this case, denotes what protein of interest was stained for. So again, I go for 14, and I go left vertical as indicated, and I say add, and you can see they are from two different data sets, NED1C1 and SEP152. I had no idea about which data sets they are coming from. Again, OMERO figure made sure that I don't get lost and don't mislabel my images, because it remembers from where those images inside those panels are coming, and also the parent data set, so to say. I'm kind of done almost in this with this top part. Well, let me just show you maybe how to do crop and insert. Okay, so I will nudge those images and let me do a crop of this image. So I will copy this image and paste it below. Okay, I want to have it here to the right, and I can concentrate on making a crop, so there will be at the end of my work here a insert, show a rectangle showing this insert, and here will be the zoomed in cropped image. Okay, so I will go for that to preview, and I will zoom in that image. Okay, I will zoom in more, and I will navigate to this object, to this centriole. Okay, so these are subcellular structures. Okay, centrioles. And I can now say that's fine. I'm happy with that as a crop. And if I copy inside the preview panel with this copy button, okay, so I copy this copy button, then select the original image and then go to labels. Okay, so this is a trick which needs usually a repetition. I select the crop, I copy inside the preview pane using the copy button. Then I navigate to labels pane. I go to the to the parent image from which the crop was done originally. And inside the labels pane, I say paste. You see, and the region of interest immediately popped in here, and that's my insert here. Okay. And for the insert, I also add the 500 nanometer scale bar. Of course, it's much longer than this one, but that's obviously, hopefully clear why is that the case. And I'm done with this panel, but you probably understand that the scientific figures usually consist of a mixture of panels where the images come from different imaging modalities. And I can add the new images to this figure by going back to OMERO web and let's say getting rid of parade for this workflow. I will collapse this large project and go to our favorite data set called SIRNAI HeLa. You remember my first workflow shown yesterday, filter by rating. And these are my best images from the mitotic phases. And I will select a couple of those images. This one is 1Z plane. This one is 1Z plane. This one is 40. Okay, that's fine. So let's select these 3 images, and I would be able to open them in OMERO.figure, as was the question in the beginning. But what would that do? That would open a new OMERO.figure with those 3 images. But that's not what I want. I want to add those 3 images to the existing figure I'm working on. So how do I do that? I grab the link to those 3 images using the chain icon on the top right of the OMERO web. I copy that using Control-C, copy that link, then go to the tab where my OMERO figure is, and I click on the Add Images button, and I paste the link I just copied. This is the link to those 3 images, and the 3 images are now in my OMERO figure. So I have now OMERO figure with which highlights 2 different imaging modalities. This is a super resolution microscopy, and this is the conventional microscopy with Z-stacks. I can now do the same trick, of course. I want to go and snap them to grid and then make the images with the appropriate size to fit on the canvas. Yes, and again, copy and paste and paste, and maybe and paste. So these are multi-channel images. And if I now select the columns again and go to preview, I will go for this first column to be blue, the second to be green, the third to be the first red. Okay, so I can adjust the rendering settings here. That was a little bit too harsh. That's better. Again, and now I want to go again, the same old trick, scale bar first. The scale bar 10 micrometers is appropriate for this type of images. These objects are much bigger. I will say, put on the labels. You can see the 10 micrometers is just right. And I can now go ahead with the other labels. Again, the channels on the top, because that's what they are. So channels, then 14 seems appropriate. I need to make sure they will be on the top, and they say add, and the channels are here. So this is DAPI, FITSI, GFP, INSEMP, and the merge. And on the left, I can put some other metadata, again, fetched from OMERO. Let's say this time we go for key value pairs, okay? So the key value pairs, quite important, as I said, and I will put them to left vertical, and the key value pairs can be then adjusted in this widget, which pops up when I said add. If I say include key in label, then very often it ends up with a very long label, which kind of leaks over the border of the image. So if I select, let's say, mitotic stage, which should be different for each of those 3, and check off the include key in label, you can see that the example label says prometaphase. I say OK, and you can see this is one anaphase, one prometaphase, and another prometaphase, which I selected. OK. And
Peter, before,
yes.
now that you have the annotation, could you show again Claire was asking, can you show again how you inserted the image the second time when where you selected your images from your rating, your 5-star images? How did you insert it in the existing figure?
Perfect. So this is a usual question. Let's start from scratch. Okay, I will create a new figure. You can create a new figure by let's go here, and I open this image in figure. Okay, you know that. That's fine. OMERO figure. This is one image. Okay, and the figure exists already. And now I want a second image, any second image. Okay, so to be less complex, this is my second image I want to add. Okay, to add the second image or more second images, I select them all, and then in the top right of OMERO Web. Okay, so you have to go back to OMERO Web because you cannot do that addition of new images to the existing OMERO figure from OMERO figure itself. You have to switch the tabs and go back to OMERO Web, select the images in OMERO Web, the new ones which you want to add, and then use this link, which looks like chain, and copy the link to those images, and then again switch the tabs, say add image, then paste the link to those two images and add those two images, and then you have the mixture of those two. Did you catch what I was showing? Yes, you did. Thank you, Claire. So that's hopefully clear. We can go back to. Yes, of course. It warns me that you can't have an empty name because I was just kind of in the middle of showing you how to save the figure which I just done. So we are actually done with our workflow. You see how quickly I went through to show you how to create a figure. By the way, we can also, of course, go more fancy because we have a Z stack here. I can still scroll through the Z stack. OMERO figure is basically an antidote to the horrific workflow which scientists very often go through, where they have a software of interest, such as, let's say, size Zen, which is a great software, nothing against that. But typically you would work with that proprietary software in a manner that where you have original images, then you export some exported images from that according to your wishes at that point, such as JPEGs or PNGs or something. And then you go to a tool like Adobe Illustrator. And again, nothing against Adobe Illustrator, of course, a great tool. And then you put those exported JPEGs and PNGs into Adobe Illustrator. And after a lot of work and exporting and reopening between those two software, you realize that you exported the wrong Z-plane. What does that mean? Well, you have to go and double back on yourself and start from scratch. Again, starting from the size Zen, looking for the image, which one it was, then going to another Z-plane, exporting that Z-plane as JPEG, then putting that into the Adobe Illustrator and so on, and you will lose time. I mean, buckets of that. Whereas in OMERO figure is basically giving you the advantage of everything being on the fly and connected to OMERO, and this means that you can at every moment correct your mistake very quickly, so that I can, for example, even now do projection on that image or indeed on the same row, like so, etc., etc. There is also a provision to rotate the image if I wish so.
There's a
But
question.
yes.
Since you're on the rendering settings, Peter and viewer, there's a question if you can copy the rendering setting from a single channel image to the merge.
Not
I don't think
in figure.
You cannot do that in figure, no.
No, but you would be able to prepare yourself in
what we can do is
iViewer.
what can be done is when you have when you select two images as you were doing, you can do the same operation. So if you take one channel, for example, and the merge, then you can see they're kind of overlaid there. So if you change the setting for that blue, that will apply. So that would be a way of if it's what you are talking about, copying, but you will have to do that channel per channel if you wanted to have exactly the same thing. Yeah. So that's kind of the only way you will be able to do that.
Yes, but you could have done that to start with, you see, because
Yes.
yeah. So what I should have been doing is I could have always selected when before I was adjusting those parameters on single channels, I should have always done that. And now they are, you see, now they are getting in synchronization. So it's not copying, instead is like multi-selecting the things which you want to copy things between. And then first time when you move this bar, yeah, when you move this bar, then things get into the same sync. Okay, so that's the way to do that. Yeah, thank you.
Maybe the question about setting up the size of the figure you want to, before you save,
Yes.
showing that either in the paper setup.
Yes, let's set up. So file, okay, so file and then paper setup. Okay, paper setup. I can change the page color here. Well, that might be too fancy for you, but sometimes, very often, it would be. So let's not be too funky. But number of pages is hugely important. Of course, you can set 2 pages or more pages, and then the size is set here. Okay, so you can set the size right here. Do I answer your question? Hopefully, yes. I say, okay, I have now 2-page figure, which is a bit silly in this case. So I will go back and go to 1 page. Okay. And without further ado, I will save that figure. Okay. So I will call it something reasonable, and the name will pop up in this bar, which is for you black. I just clicked into it, and that's why it's white for me. And the figure will be McGill. Friday. Of course, you will, normal world, you will go for more reasonable name, but it's reasonable enough for this workshop. And the name of the figure pops up here, and the URL will change, and I will come back to that later. That's basically a pointer to this figure, which is kind of binding now, yeah? So you can find the figure under this URL. Furthermore, after or even before you save such figure, you can export the figure. Okay. So on the top right, there is an export PDF button. You can export also as TIFF or TIFF with images. Let's stick to PDF for now. If I click that, then on the server, the PDF is being built for me out of that figure. This is done now, and the download button, which similarly to my Firefox download button, encourages me to download that figure from the OMERO server to my local environment. This is, of course, a step you would do for showing your work to people who don't use OMERO, or which you can't simply connect to your server in some meaningful manner. And I will straight open this downloaded figure in the preview, which you saw the pop-up locally. This is happening on my Mac now. This is on my Mac, okay? Whereas this in the background is in the browser and thus on the server. So I got the figure out of the server into a PDF. It's 1-page figure, as we saw, because I went 2 pages, but then back to 1, and it's 1-page figure, but it has 2 pages. And what is on the second page then? Well, it's the name of the figure, McGill Friday, that's fine. But then there is a link to the figure, okay? Which is very helpful because you can grab that link like so and copy link and then go to your email client and then send an email to your colleague. If that colleague has an access to your OMERO and has right to see your images and has right to see the figure, then they will, if they are not logged into OMERO, click in that email they received from you on the link, and they will be navigated to the login page of OMERO. And when they put in their credentials, then they will be re-navigated immediately to see this figure of yours, okay? And they can make a copy of that, and et cetera, and somehow cooperate with you on that figure. Very good. Furthermore, if we go back to our PDF, typically the process of submitting stuff to scientific journals can be quite protracted, and the journal, after you submitted your figure, will come back to you after a long time saying you need to change the layout and content of panel 3A. And you wonder what did you actually use as original data for the panel 3A because it was long ago. Okay, so almost certainly forgotten. But for that, you have your PDF. And if you click on some link in this PDF, that exactly is the original data. That's the image which is underlying the things which are shown under panel 3A of your figure. Okay, that's how easily you will find it out. So, furthermore, if you go back to OMERO.figure, which we just saved here, the thing which was saved, is not again some proliferation of images and their duplication and clogging your server with a lot of taking away too much space on your server. No, OMERO.figure was saved as a lightweight thing. It's kind of a recipe which just remembers which images should be in those panels and what are the metadata which are supposed to be shown. So where do I find the figure on the server once I saved it? I can go File, Open, and here I can see that this is my figure here. It's of course not openable because this figure is open. Yeah, so why to open it a second time? So I can show and see the figures which I did previously. And indeed, here comes another cooperation aspect. I can change the owner here in the drop-down menu, which I can navigate to after I clicked File, Open. And the drop-down menu is called Owner. And if I navigate to some other owner than myself, such as my colleague Trainer 2. My colleague Trainer 2 has only one figure, but it's really worth it. It's called Aurora B figure 2. And if I open that, you can see that this is a 2-page figure. And my colleague Trainer 2, in fact, of course, members of the OME team, highlighted the features of OMERO.figure in full here. So first of all, what I didn't show you on the figure which we did together was you can use big images. This image is the 100,000 by 50,000 pixel big section of the mouse spleen. And you can see you can do the insert and everything as shown. Then you can do regions of interest in the figure. And I actually remember now I should have shown that. I will come back to it because you should see that and should be able to do that. You can draw new regions of interest inside OMERO.figure, but you can also fetch regions of interest from OMERO. And we will go through that in a second. I'll come back to that, okay? Then you have various types of inserts combined with arrows and differently positioned labels. That's all what the OMERO.figure can do. You can do a legend for your OMERO.figure at the bottom. That's all possible. And indeed, if you have your Western blots saved as PNGs and import them as images into OMERO, of course, you can add them to your figure as well. Very good. Now, let me show you something which is very interesting on this particular OMERO figure, and this is the time lapse. Okay, so this shows quite good, in a good manner, the power of OMERO figure. You can see that I'm highlighting those two panels which are at the 42 minutes. And I just promised you that the labels and the panels are kind of live connected to OMERO, so that it's not some static copy. Instead, if I now go and in the preview pane, drag on the T slider, on the time point slider here, then watch what will happen inside those panels. And watch also how will the 42 minutes label change. So if I drag the slider, let's say to the left, okay, it says now 25 minutes because I went through the time backwards from 42 to 25. Those two contents of those two panels changed because the T-point, T-plane of 25 minutes looks, of course, differently from the 42 one, but the label was working with that, okay? It's connected via OMERO figure to OMERO, and OMERO knows what is the delta T, the time difference between the planes, and how many planes did I drive through when I was dragging that bar. This figure was saved and even doesn't belong to me, okay? But it doesn't matter. All is possible to fix and double back on yourself and change his life on the fly as I'm coming back to that figure. Okay, so now let's come back to the figure and show you something which I forgot to do, and this was the and these were the channels, pardon me, the regions of interest. So let's put on this image the regions of interest, which are coming from OMERO. Okay, how to do that? So I can go to Label tab if I select that pane and go Edit. And there a new window will pop up and I can say Load ROIs. Now, where do those ROIs come from? Okay, for example, I like this ROI. Okay, and I like that ROI as well. And very good. If I select a couple more, yeah, this one, why not? So these ROIs are coming from Fiji ultimately. You know how it happened. We were going through with you the workflow in Fiji where we were doing the segmentation, thresholding, and analyze particles, and the regions similar to this one were coming up, and then we were saving them back to OMERO. And this is one of those regions. We were running the scripts as we were showing to you from the scripting editor of Fiji and or via the Jupyter notebooks on 414 images, and on each of those images, that's why I didn't have to worry on which image there is a ROI and on which not, because on all of them there is ROI, okay? You saw it in OMERO.parade, by the way, also. And now I'm adding those regions of interest to my OMERO figure. In this manner, I can very quickly go all the way from the analysis results to publication, okay? This is not something you will see very quickly in any software, really.
Maybe you
And
could show how to add an arrow when you have, on this one, you could point an arrow because you can add, as you said, you can add new ROI as well.
So yes, so as Jean-Marie just highlighted, I can add an arrow here, which I'm doing, and I can, of course, this seems a little bit too thin to me, so I can make the arrow thicker or even much thicker. Yeah, that's fine. And I say, okay, so you can see I can add arrow. These were the arrows I showed in the other figure. So there is a combination of two types of regions of interest. As Jean-Marie just said, I can add new regions of interest, arrow being a region of interest, kind of funny one, but nevertheless, straight from OMERO figure. But these white ones are coming from OMERO. Yeah, these are the Fiji ones. I can still manipulate them here when I say, okay, maybe they are still too thin, can make them thicker. That's over the top, so I can go 3 pt. But you can see it manipulates the thickness of all the ROIs inside that insert. Okay. And I can say that even now the ROIs are white, but I don't like it. So I say they're magenta. Okay. So I can change the color of all the ROIs. Yeah. As well as OMERO figure can draw some more complex regions of interest, such as circles and rectangles. Very good. I think if I didn't forget something, and of course, if there are no questions, I would kind of try to conclude the workshop.
Maybe for the PDF, one thing to indicate is that because OMERO figure doesn't support all the feature like Illustrator will do, you can still open that and continue to manipulate your figure into a tool like Illustrator if you want to. So you're not in, because we can't support everything, so that is possible. Can letters be added to figure? So where do you want to add letters to the figure? Like A, B, and C as an annotation?
Yeah, like panel numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, they would be as a label. Peter, maybe you can
principally, yeah, principally that shouldn't be a problem. So let me say, okay, the crucial point, of course, is where will that be? Where will the letter be? I can say it can be on the top. That's fine, as these labels are. Or it can be inside those images, that's fine too. But if you want a completely free-floating label saying B here, okay, and completely free-floating label saying A, which is kind of completely detached from any of those panels, then we would have a little bit of a problem. But let me show you the first, the positive side. So I will put A, B, C, D here, yeah, those panels. Let's do that. So I will say add labels in all four, and I first add A, and I will say inside, and this will be top left, I promised, and for me white in this case would make most sense. This would be too small, so let's go for 14 and add. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, there are of course 4 A's, but I will just select now the panels one by one and say this is B. Okay, so it changes to B. By the way, we had a question as I'm editing the labels here now. Yeah, you can see how am I doing it. I'm in the labels tab and I'm rewriting the value of the label from A to C. The label doesn't change here yet. I have to either navigate to another cell, then it changes to C, or I have to hit enter. Okay. So if I select another panel, then I say D, okay, and then when I hit enter, then it changes to D, okay? So I have A, B, C, D. I can do that, yes. I could do also, instead of this DAPI, I could do A, B, C, D, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you do. But what I cannot do is to pop one big B here in this particular place, because it's on the canvas. It's not connected to any of those panels. Is that clear?
That may be a feature to consider, that
Great.
it become all wired basically.
Yes, I think this is kind of coming to the question of out of the panel ROIs, which Will gets as well very often. I think he even has an issue, but we will check how you know, the status of the issues and maybe open a new one for this one particularly, because of course as the progression of work was done on the figure, then obviously the panel-bound features, so to say, were thought of first. So all of those labels are panel-bound. This DAPI is definitely bound to this panel. Yeah? And by the way, this is also something you have to bear in mind, of course, yeah, because you might get into confusion. Maybe in this panel, it's not DAPI, although this is saying so, yeah. But you can, of course, verify it by calling this feature again and saying channels on this bottom one, and say add. Yeah, in this case, it is DAPI, okay? But here, actually, I'm making a mistake. Yeah, so you have to be careful. Channels, and I say add. You see the channel here is SEP152 and not NED1. This is because I'm trying to combine apples with pears in those two rows, yeah? But you would, of course, do the figure more mindfully if you are doing it in real life, yeah?
At the moment for the plotting, the graph, they have to be saved as images. That's something that come up quite often. We've not implemented that feature yet. As Peter, one of the figure was the Western blot, and they are saved as PNG. That's the only way at the moment.
So can we save the plots in OMERO.parade as an image?
Plots, no, not you know,
data.
and that's very very often question. So I think what you are asking is let's go and have a plot in OMERO.parade like so, this plot, and you would like to say, let's say, right click and say save as an image in OMERO. A very valid feature request, but not there yet. Sorry. Yeah. That is one thing, and just to demonstrate the previous answer, the Western blots are right here in this data set. I will get rid of OMERO.parade because it's not doing me any favor. You can see these are the thumbnails of basically Wilmore's wet lab carrier Western blots. It's not the easiest workflow in the world. But very often you would have PNGs of your Western blots, and you simply humbly deploy your OMERO inside and import those Western blots as PNGs into OMERO, and here we go. That is completely doable. Yeah. There is one more feature which is kind of with creating of new images in OMERO. What was very often requested and what we might find handy is if we want to make a new OMERO image out of this figure, I think this is possible. If we deploy the export menu, there is a new OMERO image item. So I can go and click on new OMERO image, and something will happen, something very good. If I go back to OMERO and yeah, that's quite interesting. I have to
just select or click the button. Did you select the item and
yeah, of course I have to click.
then
I just made a common mistake. I just selected, but I didn't click on the green button after I selected it. Okay, so now it's really churning and it's saying export to figure.
you didn't like it.
Yeah, and we have thank you. Yeah, so we have something here. I will stop sharing for a second, but that feature is there and we will fix it. Okay.